stories tell us that since ancient times, life has always existed in the heart of France, in the center. In the Cher, wine work goes back to the 1st century of our era, but it's mostly during the 11th century that the vineyards rapidly expanded thanks to the monasteries set up around Bourges. Today, in the perimeter called Terroir, 6 vineyards are gathered, among which the most prestigious is the Sancerre. From its rocky mountain peak, the city of Sancerre towers over 280 hectares of vines planted on the exposed slopes of the 12 hills of the valley of the Loire. Far from the quasi-industrial outposts of the Bordelais and the Burgundy, the wine remains here a handcraft and familial business. For 10 generations, the Bourgeois family have grown wines in Chavignol, exploiting 2 hectares in 1950. Henri Bourgeois and his sons composed a vineyard of 70 hectares, widely spread over the best hills of Sancerre and Pouilly.
It's my bio-friendly piece of land. One of the organic parcels. Yeah, one of the organic parcels. I didn't think that the wood would have installed itself so easily. Great. How are you? Fine. The show was okay? Good, very good. Tired? A lot of people? We were quite busy. You still have a lot to do? About a month's work left. Really? Yes, it's okay, I think. And with the days like today, things are improving. I'd say that all this is because we've taken great care of the vines throughout the year. That's what I told you, it's important. Yes. You have to be there, you have to know the parcels. Have to have the vines talking to you. Yeah, and I listen to them too. You really have to listen to them. It's like women, you have to let them talk. Yes, but well, we don't listen to them very often. Good old Dad. The Bourgeois family was like any other family. They were born in Sancerre more than 10 generations ago. Although they were winemakers, goat breeders, they used to do mixed farming as well. We had to do a little bit of everything if we wanted to live. We had chickens, ducks, pigs, and we made, of course, goat cheese. Wine at the time, I remember when I was young, was made for buying a plough, to buy a new horse, to buy a piece of land. We weren't making a living out of wine. A father, a mother, children, everyone who was a winemaker, who loved what they did. And today, it's still the same. Now it is multiplied several times over. But it's still a family. A loving family, an understanding family, a united family. Hi, Arno. We have some Dutch friends visiting at the moment.
I want to introduce you to my brother, Lionel.
Hello, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So we met actually in Angers, and they come to visit and see a little bit of our vineyard, especially the Côte des Mondanais, down the mountain. Exactly.
They already knew the Mondanais. They've tried it. And they wanted to see the hill. And they want to see how we work the vineyard. So they came to this parcel. So is it progressing a bit? Yes, we're pruning now. It hasn't started growing yet. In 1950, we had 2 acres, 2.5 acres of vines. In 1952, my brother came to work with my father. And then, well, they needed some more vines, as they were 2 workers. So they looked for some. My father did. And we had 2 old cousins from whom we inherited some vines. And this enabled my father to expand the vineyard. They were really old vines, which were producing an excellent wine. So it allowed us to expand the vineyard and also to develop loyalty in customers, to earn a reputation with the wines. My brother, he was the artisan of the wine. He is the one who expanded the vineyard, the real master of the vines. As for me, I loved the vine, but I couldn't love it like my brother. However, I was quite gifted for the wine, better with the customers. They like me, I don't know why. Maybe because I'm a jolly person. Maybe also because I like good things. When that's the case, you always create relationships with people. It happened naturally. My brother was the vine specialist, I was the one of wine and customer service. Later my nephew arrived. He loved wine. He was the oenologist, the one receiving the grapes and transforming them into good wine. We're going to use it in our blends. Okay. Now it's finished. It was drawn off on Monday in the afternoon. And then my son arrived 2 years later. He's the real artisan of the vine. He replaced my brother. He adores his vine and he would almost sleep in the middle of them. When we're pruning, we think about the year ahead. And we also think about the following ones.
You want to see the way that we could practice a little bit with
pruning? Or?
Pruning, yes. Okay, yeah, it's always interesting because
Last year we left what we call here a spur. It's a rod, a fruit branch. So the principle of pruning is easy. It's to look at a spur, and I'm going to leave a fruit branch. So I get rid of everything I don't need. It's a quick thing, simple guyot pruning. I clean the fruit branch, and then I wind it up around a rod thread, like that. When all the buds come out, the branches will grow straight, and we will have grapes approximately at this level. And that's it. And then came Arnaud, my youngest son. He's really at ease with the customers. And the customers, they love him. He would spend his life with them. It happened naturally. We didn't decide who was going to do what. It's the feeling of the ones with the other, which made us divide the things like that between us.
between 6, 8, exactly. Yeah.
We're brothers and we respect each other. We've always wanted to go further and further. It's not just doing your job, it's trying to do better than that. And we all share this desire. So we're together. Plus we're already looking in the same direction, so it's obviously another strength.
In less than 50 years, the Bourgeois family multiplied its production by 40, getting from 15,000 bottles in 1952 to 600,000 in 2000. Facing more and more rigorous competition, they decided to fight to remain in the wine market in full revolution. Their weapons, the respect, the familial know-how, the search for quality, and a passion that Jean-Henri Bourgeois liked to communicate.
Hi, how are you? Côte des Mondanais. So that's the wine. We do a single vintage, of course, but just one. This is the new date stamping for Russia and the lot issue for France. Our Russian Viticom customers are visiting us. There are bottles for Peking, Seoul, London, Connecticut, Hong Kong, New Caledonia, bit of everything. The lack of room is becoming a bit of a catastrophe. Yes, but not enough yet. When I started to work with my father and my brother, we would work only in this small cellar and a small barn next to it. And then over the years, the next step, we built and we built. I'm going to bring up some bottles and a corkscrew now. Give me the Parfumé Henri Bourgeois. Tell the young lady, the bourgeois woman, to come up. So this is one of the chief executors of the Viticom company, which imports our wines and sells them in Russia. And the three gentlemen here, I think they have 7 restaurants, among which a quite extraordinary one in Moscow. He created a Chinese restaurant in 2007, the most beautiful in the world. They're people who like wine, who enjoy them. And I think this morning they learned something about our character, and moreover the character of our wines.
As the European legislation imposes strict quotas, the French winemakers cannot endlessly expand their lands. At the beginning of the 90s, the bourgeois started scouting worldwide in the main viticultural regions to discover new horizons. They are aiming at discovering a land able to produce high-quality wines, comparable to the ones of the Sancerre, but with a different taste.
In 2000, we went to New Zealand, one of my sons, some friends and I. And there, it was the landscape which struck us at first. But we were also won over by the vines. The wines weren't extraordinary, but they were very good. Good pleasure wines. We really felt the Sauvignon soil. And we were surprised to find some good Pinots. So we said, it's maybe the place we should come. 4 months later, we went back there with my other son and my nephew. We looked, but we couldn't find what we wanted. We wanted hills. It's only on the day before our departure that we saw a place which really pleased us. And we said, well, maybe we should settle here. We went to see the man. Do you want to sell your farm? Because it was a farm and they were doing some breeding. He said, okay, why not? That's how it happened. We negotiated. This was in June 2000, and in August 2001 we started to plant vines.
I'm the chef de viticulturist, so I'm in charge of all the production for the vineyard side, and I manage all the vines and all the people working in the vineyard at the same time.
Takaki is now in France to learn a bit of how to work on the domaine bourgeois, to adapt it to New Zealand. Because we, the bourgeois family, we have a philosophy which is always to do one's best. We saw people there in New Zealand from time to time, but they don't really know our philosophy, which aims at reaching excellence for our New Zealander wine. Takaki, you take the buds off to avoid the grapes being too diluted. To bring the maximum of ripeness to the grapes, you leave. There's no sugar. It's only acid, in fact. You optimize the ripeness to get the best quality possible. It's important to communicate with our domain in New Zealand about French viticultural heritage. As France is an old viticultural country and New Zealand is a young one. The first vines were planted only 20 years ago. So for them it's the wine industry, whereas we, French people, we have the soul of wine. We live with the wine. We want to share with these people who take care of our domain there our love for wine.
When I'm working for Coranly Vineyard, we want to bring some of the French influence into New Zealand, and I'm not French, so I don't have that philosophy from the beginning, but now I can understand what is the philosophy of Bourgeois family.
Donc voilà, tu fais tomber du raisin.
So there you are, you drop the grapes, the unripe ones,
Pour pouvoir aérer ton
to air out your vine stock and to have pretty homogeneous ripeness.
Assez homogène. Donc tu fais tomber
You make the less nice grapes fall.
les moins jolis. Tout en
But you
évitant aussi de
try to avoid letting too much juice go on the rest. It's unbelievable to see how this area has changed. The cinema's over there now.
Wine is a product you need to sell. As the French market is saturated, Jean-Marie travels all around the world quite often as a good salesman. In Russia, wine used to be a privilege for the apparatchi of the former Soviet regime. The new Russia wanted to get off vodka. The Russian market is to be conquered. Jean-Marie really understands it.
Hello! Bonjour!
Bonjour!
Quite a ham, this Jean-Marie. The patriarch of the bourgeois begins a marathon roadshow in the best restaurants of Moscow with Daria, the representative of the importing company. With perfectly well-polished speech, a charming tour around the very influential young Muscovite sommeliers is about to start.
Je propose d'abord que...
Let's taste it.
Avant de déguster un sushi sashimi. Non, trop bien.
With this wine, you have several vintages. Jadis, the Chêne Saint-Étienne, the third one, Clos Henri of New Zealand. I brought several soil samples so you can understand a bit about it. These sediments can be found on the big hillside in Chavignol. You can find it. It's called the Côte des Mondanais. I'd like you to go there. The best wine of this region is called Jadis. Once, because it's a very traditional wine without any chemical substances. Really traditional. You do really enjoy meeting winemakers? Would you like to meet some more?
Потому что плов тот производитель, который не знает людей, которые пьют его вино. Сидя на одном месте, невозможно узнать весь мир.
People and encounters make me learn a lot of things, and I'm still learning a lot by meeting people. For me, it's a passion to share my know-how. And I don't come here to say, here I am, bourgeois. No, I come here to talk with people, to share real knowledge, and to share what I've learned. Plus the pleasure of being in Sancerre.
Il va venir voir Sancerre. La place rouge était vide. Devant moi marchait Nathalie. Elle avait un joli nom, mon guide. Nathalie. La place rouge était blanche. La neige avait fait un tapis. Et devant ce froid immense, Nathalie, elle parlait en phrases sobres de la révolution d'octobre. On a toujours dit les Russes.
People always say Russians, only some Russians have money and the rest of them are really poor. Sure, there are still poor people, but more and more Russians have money. Just look at the cars in the streets. It's really, really important. More and more Russians have enough money to buy big cars and to drink foreign wines, to create really good restaurants. You have to follow this evolution. It's essential in our job. Is the Russian market an important one? It's becoming important. It has quite an importance. For me, it's currently as important as Belgium or Germany. I take it into consideration as a real market, and I take care of it. Not like a complementary market. How does a market like Russia represent in your exportations? Oh, an important one. Important. I don't know if he came. No, he came for the opening. That's it, that's great. I always appreciate being in such a legendary place.
Very proud to see his family name written on the menu of the mythic Pushkin Cafe, the showman becomes a kid. To place his one on the greatest tables of the world is not only a question of money.
How many wines from the Bourgeois domain or from New Zealand are there on the menu? What kinds of wine do they have? The red Bourgeois is only sold in magnum bottles. It's offered to companies coming for dinner. We think that it develops the wine. It evolves better in a magnum bottle.
Et les vins blancs, ils sont présentés par le vin la chaîne Sancerre.
Ah, d'accord. Rien que les beaux vins de la maison. Bravo.
Et les gens ici.
And people here keep on asking for the Sancerre name, which is really well known.
Sancerre, surtout, qui est très bien connu.
I'm not the only one to do Sancerre wine, but I was one of the first to put Sancerre in this kind of place. And I'm really proud to somewhat popularize Sancerre around the world. When I sell a bottle of Sancerre wine in Moscow, I promote the name.
Many people in the region really believe that Noah's Ark arrived in Chavignon. The first animal to disembark was a goat, and the first tree planted was the vine. So, if this little village is mostly renowned for its goat's cheese, its vineyard is one of the most important in the Sancerre. Its vines are composed of 20% Pinot Noir and 80% Sauvignon. We are now here near the Loire, and we benefit from the microclimate. The weather is never very cold, and the humidity rate is always ideal. The soil is perfectly adapted. In fact, the sea used to cover the region 165 million years ago, and when it moved back, it left a fertile land composed of clay and limestone full of sediments. It's not an accident that if for centuries men want to grow vines in Chavignols. However, it's impossible. The village is small and exploitations run in the family. There is no land to sell. The Chavignols people like their specificity, and that's why they are called the Corsicans of Sancerre.
Allez, là, Pascal, là. Là, là.
Là, faut bien chercher pour
Allez, prenez des rangs. Allez-y. Accélère.
C'est le début des vendanges.
It's the beginning of the grape harvest. We just started. We've been working in the wines for a year now, a year trying to give them the greatest care, and at last here's our work. There's stress too. The first day of the harvest is always very, very stressful. We always fear something will go wrong, things like that. But after 2 or 3 days, I'm feeling better. I think it's important to respect the grape up to the end. Because for me, you can't make a fine wine if you don't first have a really good raw material. I think you always have to be careful about what you pick. You know what a harvester is? On the first day, they're ready to cut all the vines in the region. On the second day, they have backaches, and on the third, they get used to it and it's okay. But no, we can't complain, it's fine. We have really nice people, a very young team this year. I think we'll have a good atmosphere. Now we're on the Côte of the Mont-d'Amé. It's the most famous hill in the Sancerre. It's called like that because ancestors used to say you had to be damned to plant vine stocks on a hill like this. And on this hill, there was the first vineyard planted in the region by monks of the Abbey of Sancerre. And it's a fact that it was monks who planted vines everywhere. And the first vineyard to be planted in Sancerre was this famous Côte de Mont-d'Amé. The slope varies between 40 and 60%, which is a lot. The soil is made of Kimmeridge and shale. It's a white, quite calcareous ground. The stones are an agglomerate of shells. Moreover, the hill is exposed due south, so it catches the sun perfectly. The one characteristic it has, as opposed to the other hills, is that it has a lot of springs in the ground. So the ground is always cool, even if it's a vineyard. It plays an essential role. The earth really gives the wine something. Anyway, on calcareous ground, on clay or calcareous ground, or on Kimmeridge and shale, the wine has a flowery taste. And the flint ground, it has a really mineral one. It's the gunstone, the flint, and it really gives a flavor to the wine. The flint is the only aromatic stone. If you plant some Sauvignon on flint or on clay and calcareous ground, I'll know what it's going to taste like. I know that if I have too strong vines on flint soil, I would induce vegetal tastes. I'd rather have not too vigorous vines to really have these flint aromas. However, I know that if I have vines not vigorous enough on calcareous grounds, I won't have any aromas. I won't have these flowery tastes of white nettle. So I have to keep the vines a bit vigorous so they can release their flavors. You work in a different way in each earth. I consider that, for me, Each vine is a person. I'm a doctor, I have 120 parcels, so I have 120 patients, and I treat each of them differently.
Allez les gars, là, allez, on y va. Ça fait pas jambes, ça fait.
Is that the taxi that I can take here?
Yeah, where are you going to?
I'm going to the 27th Street.
Like father, like son, Arnaud took over the paternal torch, and it's now his turn to play the globe-trotter.
Where are you from?
I'm from France.
French.
Yes, we speak a little bit of French. Not really? Ah, merci beaucoup. That's already a good thing.
In Hong Kong, Tokyo, Madrid, or New York, the youngest of the bourgeois spends 3/4 of his time abroad.
Thank you.
If they want to stand out, the winemakers have to travel to export themselves.
I'm in New York to meet our distributor, importer, to define things a little bit, to make a kind of report at this stage of the project. We're now in October. The rest of the year is going to be a very important period. And the beginning of the next year with the launching of the vintage year 2007 from March. So we'll try to define the strategy, to see what's important to settle, so that the salesperson understands the strategy of the bourgeois house. New York is a busy city, so it's synonymous of what we're looking for, or at least what we're longing for. We want to have our own pace of progress and evolution. And New York is a bit heterogeneous, very cosmopolitan, very active city. And I think that in some way there are some small bridges we could build between the domain and this quite extraordinary city.
Il est connu là, le monsieur avec qui on va déguster?
Oui, madame. Et j'ai un beau liquor store en plus, c'est 67 Wines. C'est des centaines de caisses de petits bourgeois.
On est très actifs parce que tu sais, la période vendange, c'est vraiment le bouillonnement.
With Maxime, his importer in New York, Arnaud goes to see one of the most prestigious cellarmen in town. Holding an attaché case, wearing a dark suit and a tie, even he looks like a young businessman. Arnaud has inherited his father's ease and plays the game of seduction.
And this is a top of their line.
Yeah. It's a wine which is fermented in barrels a little bit, but it comes from very old vines.
I'll have it by the glass at Danielle.
I want one case.
One case? Sure.
Thank you. So we explain here that we have some sediments which can happen. It never happens usually because we don't filter the wine. It's just a small production. We are talking of 5,000 bottles a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's 350 a case?
350 a case.
Wow. You know what I have to sell for?
Yep. $45.99.
You ever sell?
I think it will. Honestly, the wine is super.
No, I will sell. I can hand sell it or not hand sell. They buy Sancerre anyway.
If you have big customer of Sancerre, you let them try one bottle of this, they will come back.
They'll come back for it.
But
then you won't have any more when they come back.
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
You gonna have more?
I have 7 cases in stock right now of the 03.
The 05, the next one. We haven't made an 04.
Come down for a minute. That's right.
It's very good quality. I think we could go even further in top quality, especially with these wines, with people like Evelyn, who hand serve. How are you? Good morning. Fine, thank you. How are you? Yeah, very good. You speak good French, a little bit. Congratulations.
My English is so poor. Okay, so let me pour you a little bit of this wine. So as I was saying, it's a very confidential production. We are talking of 5,000 bottles. It's like a small exclusivity amongst our own vineyard. This wine is made a part in barrels, about 60% in barrels and 30% in stainless steel tank. And it's a non-filtered wine. We just wanted to make it traditionally.
Incredible. You're going to sell this for $45.99.
Wow. Yeah, it's great concentration.
Oh, absolutely.
Fruit, the minerality, the little, it's very nice.
Thank you. Yeah. To be honest with you, we don't
Terroir, type of vine, family history. This young winemaker comes straight from the French countryside to seduce the experimented sommelier of the place. They like the wine. He becomes even better when the price of selling is announced at $45 a bottle. In the land of the green bill, business is business.
Lobster. Yeah. Oh, lobster. Absolutely.
Lobster,
grilled lobsters, for example.
Yeah. It's definitely, yeah. Because you need something to cleanse your palate from the richness of the lobster.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It's great.
Okay. We good?
Allez.
Maxime, you're a king. I always bring you to the good places. You've got a name for it, that's for sure. It's a good investment, and I think we should follow. The staff is quite enthusiastic about wine quality, so once you're in place, it'll move by itself. To be there is really important, because New York is a market with a lot of competition, and everyone wants to be in New York. So with a little push for these products is really important, especially the top quality market where wines are being tasted. Because if you don't have any Parker points, you need to have this, how can I say, to make people taste it, in fact. When you see all this work, all the attention to detail in the production, in the vineyard, or with the team in the cellar, that's a true work of art, on each level. And all these efforts are rewarded when our wines are well introduced and well represented here. It's a real compliment to all this work. And actually, it's the best answer, the best reward we can get.
Where were you the day up?
I was in Times Square when this happened.
Okay.
It was scary, man.
Was it?
Yeah, the whole city was covered with smoke.
Until up here?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
You can smell the smoke everywhere.
Well.
Arnaud starts his roadshow in all of the restaurants in Manhattan. New York is probably the city with the most medium and high-quality restaurants in the world. To be in this market simply means to exist. Many French have settled in the Big Apple. The owner of this place is a fellow citizen, so the contact is easy.
We're working on keeping the traditions. Yes, I think it's important. There's not really room for creativity. Yes, there is. Because in our job, maybe less and less, because the rules are strict and we often have to follow very accurate rules to make the wine. But I don't think it's incompatible with the respect of traditions, at the same time as being creative and innovative. It's the same thing every year. We have such an incredible land. I'd feel guilty about not making a method with the bottle at the gate of this country. With the changing of the business rules, we have to adapt. It's not going to be easy. Because tomorrow, if the Chinese drink Sancerre wines, what are you going to do? We'll try to go and communicate. I don't know if they would buy, but I try to communicate better on how we are working. I think we can do marketing research. But you still need creativity and personalization. If you tell a painter, I need a nice bunch of flowers, and then if you ask 10 painters, you'll have 10 different bunches of flowers. That's what I'm looking for in my wines, to let this personalization, this highly sensitive thing we have, be expressed.
Yeah, so it's flint. Yeah, yeah. And what is very interesting is the fact that Sauvignon Blanc is very reactive to the nature of the soil. Okay. And for example, if you strike these two stone.
Yeah, it's flint, that's how you make fire.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you smell? Yeah. There is a certain smokiness, and this flavor is not as intense as you can smell it here. But in this glass, it shows a certain spiciness.
With this young chef in New York, Arnaud went out again. He recalls his father's presentation in Moscow. Let's not change a winning method.
It's not natural for me, of course, to be in the countryside in Chavignol, to be in the heart of the vineyard, to have very down-to-earth ideas, having to solve very concrete issues, and then to be in the streets of New York, and to have to explain and defend the idea that a wine is not always an industrial product. On the contrary, it's a work of art, a handcraft. It's a very artistic product. And to defend this idea, when everything goes so fast here, life is so modern and exciting, sometimes it's quite hard to find your own roots. But I think despite all this, that the New Yorker and the New Yorker sommelier is very attentive to this, and we're a bit their oxygen bottle when we come to visit them.
In Chavignol, it's the end of the grape harvests. It's the turn of the cellar master, Jean-Christophe, to play the score.
We're trying to keep alive this taste for wine, inherited from our grandparents, from our parents, and to share this passion. Because what we're sharing through wine, it's history. It's a history of the country, of France, not only Sancerre, but throughout France. The history of wine growing and the wine development. It's an interesting thing. Here you've got the most intact grapes, which will be pressed very gently for a long time, but very gently, to obtain the best juice, the fullest in aromas and taste. It's more or less like an orange you press and put in the fridge. You have the liquid part of the juice on the top and the murky part at the bottom, which become the sediments in the bottom of the vats. That's what you get after 48 hours. So you see the difference between the grape juice coming out of the wine press and the settled one, the very liquid one, the one without any impurities. And it's this juice that we will use to make the wine. It's important to taste it before we put it into bottles, so that we can see what can be blended. With that, because on the same land in our Sancerre vineyard, we have very small parcels, very close to one another, and they are very close in character. It's important to combine these parcels to make a vintage. We have the impression that we have a summary of the whole year in one bottle, and that's amazing. To transcribe again what nature gives us during one season, to transcribe it through the bottles and their sampling. We're proud and at the same time we're anxious because when the bottles come out, we're quite stressed about what the consumer is going to think. Because the consumers are now so used to having very linear things, to standardization. That's our little unique thing in France. A notion that a vintage year is a thing a lot of other countries around the world don't have. And you have a qualitative difference between one year and another.
We're
going to go in this building that my father restored 6 months ago. And this is the first family meal that we're going to have there.
Even during the rare moments of a break, the main topic of conversation between the men of the Bourgeois clan remains the same. Do we need to tell you which one it is?
Jean-Christophe, I think you're going to let us try the 2007 Sancerre. I think we're all satisfied with the work done. Because I think we didn't do everything well.
Du travail accompli, parce que je pense qu'on n'a pas tout bien accompli, mais
we still produce some nice things.
Belles choses, mais on n'en est pas fiers.
But we're not proud. We're only satisfied.
Satisfait simplement. Mais cette satisfaction,
we shouldn't be the only ones to feel like that.
Nous qui devons l'avoir.
Our partners should as well. We're not alone to work.
Seul pour travailler.
He's going to play his favorite game. He'll pour us some wine and we'll have to tell him which one it is. A sock? Now we'll see if we're slightly able to do some sampling. Anyway, there's no secret. To find a wine, you need to have tasted it before. So every time you can try some, you've got to do it. So this second bottle, does it come from some area or is it from a non-European one? No, it doesn't. It's very flavored with aniseed. It's a bit spicy. You need to say at least where it comes from. That's to say, at least from the northern or southern hemisphere. Then we like to discover the wine variety. Here it's obvious that it's a very Sauvignon-oriented, so we try to detect if it's a Sauvignon or not. Then we proceed by elimination. We try to know if we've already tasted the wine, if we know the winemaker. Because it's often wines we've traded abroad when we visited some winemaker friends. We try to make a small collection of all the trades we did. For me, it comes from the southern hemisphere. But it could have been a very good Sauvignon, but it is not already evolved. Past. And I'd say it's not French at all. It has a new world style, I'd say. Because it's important to talk together. Most of the time, not during work. And the idea is to eat together, to talk of your business, and also of other things. Nice truffles, very nice. I'm so proud that my children took over the business, and I'm happy everything's fine with them. It's an Austrian Sauvignon. The family side, it's the greatest success. Success is not money. Money, I've never run after it. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is my company. We have a company, and we've got to make it work. We've got employees to feed. So the company has to prosper, because you know now that we're condemned to be prosperous. Otherwise, we'll crash. Thanks, great. Now there's something extraordinary. Look carefully. Automatic, and here now, the smiling function. That's to say, don't smile. We're not smiling. You see, look, there. Let's go. You see the two buttons there? I press on them. It doesn't do anything. Smile.
Bourgeois, like many French winemakers, struggle every day to survive in the heart of a system able to destroy them. Far from Moscow and New York, it's in the cellar of his ancestors that Jean-Marie likes to come back to his roots.
I'm holding a bottle dating from 1934. It's my great-grandfather who made this wine. It was before the Sancerre name. It was some wine he hid before the war, before the Germans could get it. It was hidden in the garden. And several years later, my grandmother told me, "Your great-grandfather hid some wine there." I dug it up, I took it out. I filled the bottles, I drank some of it. There's still a few bottles left. And this is the greatest treasure of my family. It's a good wine. It depends on how you like it. But this wine talks to me. It tells me... It reflects a little of the frame of mind of those years. It's obvious that it has nothing in common with our modern wines. But we don't know how the current wines will taste like in, say, 80 years. We can't tell the future. But in this case, we know the past. The wine is alive. Even after 80 years, it's still alive. Sancerre wines are said to mature very badly. I only wish everyone could grow old like this Sancerre.
Tu veux savoir un peu plus, vous deux.
Tu veux du spectacle dans ta caméra?
Moi, je viens de lire l'étiquette.
Mais c'est des bonnes choses d'expérience.
Et venez donc à ma place, hein, parce qu'ils sont en train de me tortiller, je sais pas quoi. Hein.
Mais c'était extra.
Alors c'est donc un enchaînement entre les vignes. La place rouge était vide. Devant moi marchait Nathalie. Elle avait un joli nom guide, Nathalie.